Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you are well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting a like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. Very cheeky of you, and let's crack on with today's first story. Much love guys. Now today's first story comes from New Way 888, and before we do get into it, there is ableism within the story, so if you do want to skip it, please feel free to do so. Timestamps are always down in the description and along the timeline below. Thank you. And it's titled, Am I the Arsehole for uninviting my brother and nephew from my celebration dinner? Backstory. My sister and I, early 30s, have an older brother. He's on his second marriage. His first marriage gave me my nephew, Connor, 15. Connor is autistic. When he was born, my, at the time, sister-in-law's family was the village. My parents were also the village. My sister and I were not. This resulted in many arguments until I told my parents they could either have my brother and his family and I would go no contact, or they would respect my boundaries and I'd still be around. They agreed. Eventually, my brother got a divorce because of marital problems. One of which his ex-wife insisting that I and my sister step up and help. I felt bad for him, still do, but I wasn't going to change my stance. My sister didn't either. I've lived out of state for a bit and recently accepted a new job offer close to home. It came with a nice bonus, so I decided to invite my parents, sister, and brother out for dinner at my favorite K barbecue spot. My parents confirmed that it wasn't my brother's week with my nephew, so all was well and good. About a week before I got back home, my brother called and said his ex had something come up and that he had Connor the upcoming week, and his current wife was going to be out of town with her sisters. I said no worries and asked if he wanted to call his regular babysitter for Connor, and I'd cover it for our dinner night. He said no. He wanted to bring Connor to the dinner and asked if we could change the venue because Connor gets overstimulated. I said no. This was my dinner. I'm paying for it. I'm going to my favorite place. He said, you know, your nephew really can't handle a place like that. I said, yes, I know. That's why I'm offering to cover paying for a babysitter for that night. He argued that he'll just bring Connor with him. I said, he's welcome to do that, but then I'm not going, so it'd just be him and our parents. He told me that was messed up, that if Connor gets overstimulated, he'd just take him and go outside until he calms down. I reminded him the last time we went to a K barbecue place. Connor had a meltdown and they had to leave. My parents always feel bad for Connor, so they usually leave and go to my brother's house to help. I said I didn't want that happening. I wanted to have a nice dinner without having to worry about that. He told me to go fuck myself and hung up. We went to dinner. My sister, my parents and I. My brother did not show up. It was a nice dinner. My parents enjoyed it too, but they said they wished my brother had come. I agreed. They then said they wished my nephew had come too. I did not agree. I said it would have likely resulted in my brother leaving after maybe 30 to 40 minutes of being there, and they would have followed him too. They agreed but said I should have let him come anyway and just deal with it. I said that sounds like a good reason for me not to do that, and we didn't talk much that night after that. Am I the arsehole? Edit. Somebody suggested I post it here. I babysat Connor before. Even now I watch him for a few hours if my brother has to do something. Don't watch him all day or overnight though. It's not his fault and he is no way a bad kid. However, I had to set boundaries because my parents and brother, mostly his ex-wife, would take a mile if you gave them an inch. They wanted my sister and I to stay local after high school so we could help with babysitting, and I was not about to do that. I did see both of them before I left, since I wanted to, but I did not apologize for wanting to eat at my favorite spot and have it done my way for just one night. Whenever he, my brother, wants to have dinner, we basically go to the same local spot because it's quiet and doesn't upset my nephew and his fixation when it comes to food. That's perfectly fine and I go to those dinners, but for my dinner, I wanted it somewhere I enjoyed. For me, I don't think you're in the wrong in this situation. This was your celebration, your favorite place to eat, and you were paying for it. You offered compromises to deal with the situation. You confirmed ahead of time that Connor wouldn't be there. When things changed, you offered to pay for a babysitter. In the past, you've accommodated Connor's needs at other family dinners by going to his preferred quiet spot, which it sounds like you wouldn't usually go to. And I think the brother's response towards the end there was telling, go fuck yourself. It said to me, he wasn't really interested in compromising in any way. He just wanted you to completely bend to his needs. And your parents didn't help him with the situation either, saying they would have left as well and just told you to just deal with it. And like I said, it sounds like you regularly accommodate Connor at other dinners, so you're not heartless in this. But future direction says, I'm going with not the arsehole. This was your celebration and you didn't want it disrupted by your nephew, who you knew would not like it and would therefore act up even though he couldn't help it. It's like the post where because one sibling only likes vanilla cake, the birthday child can't have a chocolate cake even though it is their favorite. The birthday child has to have a vanilla cake no matter how much they wanted chocolate. Instead, the parents could have bought a vanilla cupcake for the sibling so that sibling wasn't left out. My niece at her marriage had a dairy-free vegetarian wedding cake. Some of the guests were vegan, some were celiacs, some had nut allergy, so there were cupcakes as well. But they, the bride and groom, could enjoy their wedding cake, made as they wanted it. If a guest couldn't eat the wedding cake, then they had a cupcake instead. Your nephew wouldn't have enjoyed your celebration dinner. You knew that, and that he would get overstimulated. You offered to pay for a babysitter. That was rejected. Your brother wanted to force his son into attending an event which would upset him and cause everyone to get upset. Not the arsehole. Significant rule says not the arsehole at all. I say this as the mother of an autistic child. You're not responsible for changing everything to suit your nephew. My son is 7, and while he's fully verbal, there are a lot of things he struggles with. Both my husband and my family love him very much, but there are some things we just don't participate in family-wise, and we always make an exit plan in case he has a meltdown. But when he has a meltdown, we never expect anyone to come with us to help. He's our child. He's our responsibility. Raising children is exhausting. Raising a special needs child is a whole new level of exhausting. It does that a village, but you cannot force your village to do everything for you and be at your beck and call. It's great that you visit your nephew and babysit him, however, it does not make you a bad person for not wanting your celebration to be about him. I've sat out at many family events because the timing or location wouldn't be a good fit for my son. And it's hard sometimes, but I am his mother. He is my responsibility. And while he comes first to me and my husband along with his sister, I cannot and will not make everyone change their plans to accommodate us. That's not fair to anyone, especially my son. Because if he grows up seeing everyone changes everything to suit him, what's going to happen when he's independent enough to live on his own? He'll be expecting everyone to cater to him because everyone always did when he grew up. That's not how the real world works. Opie responded saying, "Thank you, you sound like a great mum. If my brother had asked to get lunch before at my nephew's favorite place, I would have said yes. But I felt it wasn't fair to me to have my dinner shifted to a different location." Ebb Independent says, "Not the arsehole. Can't believe they expected you and your sister to limit yourselves and stay near them to raise their child. That's some entitled shit." Opie says, "I did sometimes feel bad because my ex-sister-in-law's family really stepped up and helped. And my parents did too. But neither of us wanted to give up going somewhere else for school and life because my brother had a kid. That didn't seem fair to us and I didn't want to put my life on hold for that. We're normally pretty good with each other, but it's only when stuff like this pops up that I get into it with my brother and parents." Oshi Jones says, "I don't understand why your brother was so hostile about it. It's your birthday. You wanted to go to a specific place to celebrate. If he didn't want to go without Connor, he should have just thanked you and declined. Not the arsehole." Opie says, "Normally he does pay for things and picks the place. Or my parents pick the place, so they usually cater to Connor. No problems with that. It's his money and his decision. I go to those. My sister doesn't come home super often and usually goes to hang out with her friends, so it's never really been a thing for her. But this is the first time I've said I was going to pay and I wasn't going to cater to Connor, which I think he was expecting to do because he and my parents do. Like I said in another comment, if he wanted to grab lunch at some place Connor liked before the dinner, I'd have been more than okay with it. But I wasn't going to let him change the venue when I was paying for it, or let him bring Connor when I know for sure Connor was going to have issues with it." And some people were asking in the comments as well about what do you mean when you say the family was a village, and it's basically it takes a village to raise a child. Everyone gets involved kind of thing. But Opie came in with her first update and said, "First, I wanted to thank everybody, positive or negative, for giving feedback. Whether it was good or bad, I did read every one of them. Even the ones who called me an arsehole. Totally valid. While I did see my brother and Connor before I left, it was more of just playing with Connor and making small talk with my brother. I decided today to call my brother to try and get more info and smooth things out. We talked for about 5 minutes before I broached the subject. I told him I was sorry if I felt like I was being unnecessarily mean or exclusionary to Connor, but that I felt I had a right to decide how to celebrate the way I wanted to. He said he was sorry he snapped the way he did, and looking back he realized Connor would have had an awful time and it would have been a big waste of money for me. The place we went to was about $80 a person, $40 for Connor whether he ate or not. He just really wanted him to be there too. I told him going forward for things like my birthday, I'd be more than happy to have a lunch as a family with Connor at somewhere he likes so we can have a good time, and go to dinner at somewhere I want to eat at, and I'd pay for a babysitter or his mum, my brother's ex, can watch him. He asked if Connor would be welcome at the dinner too, and I said I don't think so because I still plan to have a KBBQ or hot pot, sushi, or fine dining, and Connor doesn't do well in those environments, lights, sounds, smells, and atmosphere, which is why I brought up having lunch the day of or beforehand so we can all celebrate and it be okay for him. But I was still standing firm that for my birthday, or something like another promotion, I wanted to go somewhere that I enjoyed without having to worry. I brought up that when he took us out to lunch, was once a month before I moved, he picked or my parents picked and they always catered to Connor. I had no problems with that and attended almost all of them. This time I wanted something for myself. He wasn't over the moon about it but said it sounded good and thinks Connor would enjoy it too. He also looked into getting him sunglasses as one of you suggested, for bright/overly stimulating environments. He then had a question for me, which I knew was going to be asked at some point. Now that I'm closer to home, he asked if I was going to be more involved as an uncle. I said yes, but not in the way he probably wants. I said I'd be more than happy to go over to his house and hang out with him, his wife and Connor, and bring the food he likes, as well as babysitting him once or twice a month, so he and his wife could go see a movie or have dinner together, but I wasn't going to be an on-call babysitter like my parents are. Several times he dropped Connor off at their house for a week/weekend with little notice, because he and his wife wanted to go on a spontaneous vacation. I told him that was not going to happen with me, especially since I'm in the process of adopting a cat, and he and Connor are allergic. I wasn't allowed to have a cat while I lived at my parents' house, which was fine because it's their house and it wasn't fair to my brother and Connor, who were over super often. So him getting dropped off at my new place was out of the question. He thankfully didn't press the topic and said it's okay. Mum and Dad didn't mind and that he missed hanging out with me and was happy that I could be around Connor more. So everything worked out as well as I could have hoped. I'm excited to move back home in a few weeks and thank you all again for the advice and criticism. We have another update in a moment, but I think good on OP for still setting their boundaries and the crystal clear, that's not going to happen with me, needed to be said because it still sounds like that brother's entitlement is pretty wild. But the top commenter on that update said, I'm glad things worked out well. I hope they have always been working with specialists for Connor so that he has the change to be as self-sufficient as possible. I get a tiny bit of a vibe that his mother and father, maybe because he just went along with his ex-wife, babied Connor, and never tried to get him help to adjust better to the real world. If Connor is incapable of eating at a normal restaurant, how is he going to get a job to support himself? If he can't do that, is your brother making plans for a permanent adult group home for Connor? One day your brother is going to die, and it is best if he makes plans way before that happens and transitions Connor as much as possible while alive so that he can adjust. OP quotes sections for that and says about the adult group home and says, that is the case, yes. His specialists have said they don't believe he'll ever be able to be independent as he is effectively non-verbal and still very prone to meltdowns despite the best efforts of my brother. So 7 months after that, OP comes in with another update and says, hi, me again. Was hoping I wouldn't have to post here again, but well, life had other plans. I, 31 male, moved back to LA from Texas for a new job. My parents live here, as does my brother, 40 male, his wife, and my nephew Connor, 16. Connor is autistic, and while he's made a lot of progress since he was 10, he still struggles with a lot of things. He's non-verbal, stims often, and frequently has meltdowns. My brother, his wife, his ex-wife, and my parents are the only ones really able to calm him down. I regularly watch him once or twice a month so my brother and his wife can go and see a movie or hang out. I do not watch him overnight or for several days consecutively, and is always at their house. After our argument last time, my brother and I have been on pretty good terms. He hasn't really pushed boundaries about babysitting and we've mended our relationship quite a bit. However, something came up recently that has us on rocky terms. My brother recently got news that he was selected to attend a conference out of the country. The company is putting him up in a hotel for 10 days, and while they won't pay for his wife to go, they have no problems if he pays her airfare and everything and occupies the room with him. I'm very happy my brother got this opportunity. The issue is childcare. The conference happens to align when my parents and sister are going to New York City for a week to celebrate my sister's birthday. Nothing is refundable, and my parents promised my sister this over a year ago they'd do this. His ex-wife, Connor's biological mother, will also be out of town for work, so that leaves me. When he called me up to explain everything and ask, I told him no. However, I listed reasons for why I wouldn't do it. 1, I live about 90 minutes away, distance-wise. Not that far, but LA traffic makes things a lot more difficult than they should be. I don't mind making the drive once or twice a month when I'm watching him, but I do not want to make it 10 days in a row. Connor cannot come to my place because I have a cat and he is allergic, as well as me having things around the house that are fragile. I do not work from home and Connor would still be in school, so I would have to likely put in PTO to do it logistically. 2, the longest I've watched Connor is about 6 hours. He had a meltdown near the end that I was unable to calm him down from, and it was only my brother and his wife getting back 20 minutes later that saved me. I cannot picture myself doing it for 10 days straight. 3, this one might sound really selfish, but I don't want to set a precedent. If I watch him overnight even once, I know my brother and his wife would push it on me again. I don't want that to be a thing. I'm happy with our arrangement of me watching him once or twice a month and hanging out with him with my brother and our parents. That being said, I would not hesitate to watch him during an emergency, but that is a totally different story. I explained all this to him. He wasn't happy. He went off on me about how he thought me being back would mean he could rely on me for this. I've said before I'm not an on-call babysitter, and his wife would really like to go on this trip. I said I'm sorry, but I'm not doing this. I said I would be happy to go and help her on the weekend he's not there and hang out with Connor to give her a break, but I'm not going to risk my own mental health for 10 days and use 8 days of PTO to watch him for a non-emergency. He had a few choice words for me and hung up. He got my parents involved in the family group chat, and they surprisingly were on my side. They said it would be a really nice gesture if I did it, but reminded him that I've never watched Connor overnight and his wife doesn't have to go on this trip. He hasn't really talked to me since. I feel bad for his wife not being able to go, but I also don't trust myself to be able to handle Connor for 10 days. Am I the arsehole here? Someone says to OP, it's so strange that it's not the biomum's problem. Isn't she sharing the responsibility? OP says she'd let my brother know months in advance that she could not be able to take him for a 5-day period because she'd be working out of town. This was a recent development for my brother. It was during his time with Connor. Another commenter says not the arsehole at all. So, LA has some of the best resources for both kids and adults like Connor. Your brother should be in touch with his local regional center. I know many parents who are hesitant to use it, but one of the services he should be able to access is respite care with well-trained caregivers. 10 days is probably way too much to start with, but it would be a good idea for them to start to look into those options. You might not be the right person to talk to your brother about it, but your parents should. It's important for Connor's future to be able to function with other people, and his parents need to start that process as soon as possible. Opie says both my parents and I have encouraged them to seek stuff like that out. Unfortunately, while my brother's wife and his bio mum are okay with him being at school and having a therapist and aides over to help, they're not comfortable with letting anybody else look after him overnight for that long. Another commenter says Connor has 3 parents, your brother, his bio mum, and your brother's wife. They are the people who have primary responsibility to take care of Connor. That all 3 of them want to go off for 10 days at the same time and none of them want to stay with the kid makes them the arseholes. It's their responsibility to ensure that one of them is there to look after their child. It's wild that after all these years of you saying no, your brother keeps pulling these stunts on you. You set your boundaries way back when you were in high school about not being able to co-parent or an on-call babysitting service. What are they still not understanding about your consistent no? Opie responds saying his bio mum will only be gone 7 days, but it's also not during her custody time, and she had let him know months in advance. I think he thought I'd flounder, that maybe being around Connor more often would soften me up. He was sort of right. I do enjoy spending time with Connor versus when I was younger, but I'm not willing to give up my freedom and personal goals to regularly be called upon to be a babysitter. I quite like my arrangement. Someone asks, isn't it possible to take Connor with him? And Opie says taking him isn't an option. His bio mum will not allow him to be out of the country, per their custody rules. And the last time he went on a 45-minute plane to San Francisco, my brother described it as the longest 45 minutes of his life. I cannot imagine what a 10+ hour plane ride would be like. Someone says the brother and his ex-wife had to figure out the childcare plan for their son. And Opie says, I agree. If I had to guess, his wife is going to stay home. He's going on the trip and his ex is going on hers. So that leaves his wife to stay home, which she obviously doesn't want to do, but it ain't going to be me. So it was about a week after that post that OP came in with another update and says, first, thank you to everyone who provided advice. I really appreciate it, and it helped know that I wasn't out of line. I messaged my brother. I said he has two options. Either he or his wife stay home and watch Connor, or he works with the local agencies and care facilities. I apologize if I'm not using the right terms. To get respite care for him for as long as they are gone, and I check on him during the weekend. I would not be watching him. I will not hear him out in regards to that. He called me and his wife got on the line and said that I know how she feels about other people watching him overnight, and how his mum feels too. And she's never been to this location before and is on her bucket list. I said I'm aware, and that I'm assuming in that case she'd be staying home with Connor, and maybe she and my brother can take Connor there in the future. My brother tried to interject and I cut him off, said I really don't care what he has to argue. I'm not here for it. As some of you suggested, I again pointed them towards local organizations and government entitles dedicated to helping parents with children with special needs, but didn't really get anywhere. I was really burnt out over everything, so I said good luck with the situation and hung up. I made a group chat with him and his wife and told him that going forward I'll be visiting them once or twice a month, meaning then one of them has to be there when I'm there. I'm not watching Connor alone anymore. I feel like this is a good compromise, letting me still hang out with Connor and also not being a caretaker. I told them that maybe in the future we can work back towards what we had before, but not anytime soon. They both wrote back paragraphs on how they were sorry, but they had no other choice and thought maybe I'd do it for them, that this could be like a second honeymoon for them, and to please keep watching him for a day or two a month. That they'd even pay me for it. I told them no amount of payment is worth it. It's not fair to me. It's not fair to Connor. He's not my son, he is theirs. That they need to start working with agencies now and get him accustomed to care and other people watching him, because our parents are getting old and soon they won't be an option. My brother responded that he and his wife will start the process and get his ex involved too. But if that doesn't work, what are they going to do? I told them that it's on them. I'll happily join them in researching organizations and benefits, but if they have an inkling in their head that I'm going to do for them what my parents do, they're out of their minds. His wife asked if I would consider getting training and learning how to care for Connor like they do, and I shot that down. I'm more than happy to be the fun uncle that drops by and hangs out, but I value my independence and won't let that be compromised. Both of them eventually just gave me thumbs up emojis. His wife said she was going to stay home with Connor and not going on the trip, and said they'd see me in 2 weeks to have a hangout. We'll see what happens then, but at the very least, I'm not on the hook for watching him, and that someone that can calm him is. I will do my best to keep pushing them to expand their circle and seek out other options and programs that help them with Connor. And I think that would greatly benefit the quality of life of all of them and prevent a situation like this from ever coming up again. The top commenter said to OP, just don't go visiting when he's due to leave. They claim a date night and come back after 10 days. OP says I happen to have a randomly placed out of town getaway around that time. Another commenter says, has your brother and his family made any plans for your nephew's long-term care? What happens as they age or die and can no longer care for him? OP says they're working on that, but they are still in the we can handle him stage, despite things like this showing they can't. Oh man, I really feel bad for Connor in this situation, the way it's sounding. But OP's final boundary towards the end there was something that sounds like it needed to happen. Take a further step back from this situation and say, He'll only be visiting when one of them is home. They've pushed OP so much now that he's stepping back. And the brother and wife need to learn a hard lesson about what happens when you exhaust people who are your support system. He has been, with their repeated boundary stomping. OP was crystal clear about their boundaries pretty much all the way through this. And I'm so glad he was mentioning other support systems as well to help them through, and even offering to help research those. Because I was thinking, like, somewhere earlier in the post, I don't know the full ins and outs of it, but it did sound like a worrying situation when OP said, you know, OP's only taking care of Connor for a certain amount of time, and towards the end of one of those, he started to have a meltdown, and OP doesn't know how to handle it, and isn't able to calm him. So what the fuck happens on 10 days? And once again, I really do hope that they do look into these other services, start to make plans for the future, etc., and get things in place, because it just, you know, I'm not sure if it's unfair for me to say, but it just sounds like the parents are doing Connor a disservice at the moment, which I know is incredibly easy for me to say, but I can only say what I'm reading, right? But what do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Now, just a huge thank you for being here today, getting involved in the stories, your love, your support, your time. It always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.